Gather round, children, and listen close, for I am about to tell you a story from the time before time, a story carried on the whispers of the savannah wind. It is the tale of a village that learned to dance with change, and the stranger who taught them the steps. In the heart of the Great Plains, where the sun beats down like a golden drum, lay the village of Omiao. Its name meant water is home, for it was nestled beside a river that had nourished its people for generations. The people of Omiao were proud and rooted in tradition. Their ways were the ways of their ancestors, carved into the very earth they tilled. They planted when the first rains came, harvested when the guinea fowl returned, and rested when the harmattan winds blew dust across the land. Their lives moved in a circle, predictable and safe. But the land was changing. The rains came later each year, and the river, once mighty, grew shy and withdrawn, shrinking away from its banks. The yams grew smaller, the maize stalks thinner, and worry began to creep into the village like a thief in the night. One day, as the afternoon sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, a stranger arrived. She walked into Omiao not with the fanfare of a returning warrior, but with the quiet grace of a weaver bird building its nest. Her name was Kemi. She was tall and slender, with skin the color of rich, dark soil after a rainstorm. Her eyes held the deep calm wisdom of an ancient forest, and she carried nothing but a small leather satchel and a curious collection of tools made from polished wood and gleaming metal, the likes of which no one had ever seen. The villagers watched her with suspicion. Strangers were rare, and a woman traveling alone was a curious sight. The elders, led by the stern and respected Chief Aide, regarded her with narrowed eyes. "What brings you to Omiao?" he asked, his voice a low rumble like distant thunder. Kemi bowed her head respectfully. "I am a traveler," she said, her voice as clear and gentle as a stream. "I seek only a place to rest and a small patch of land to farm." Chief Aide, seeing no harm, granted her a patch of dusty, forgotten land at the very edge of the village, a plot so dry and stubborn that even the hardiest weeds refused to grow there. The villagers chuckled amongst themselves. Bissy, a woman known for her sharp tongue and even sharper wit, scoffed loudly. "Let the stranger play in the dust. She will soon learn that Omiao's soil only answers to the old ways." Kemi simply smiled, a small, knowing smile, and thanked the chief. The next morning, the village awoke to a strange sight. Kemi was not waiting for the rains. Instead, she was at the riverbank, not praying for water, but digging. She spent days carving a series of narrow, winding channels, like tiny rivers, leading from the great river all the way to her barren plot of land. She used her strange wooden tools to create small gates and sluices, guiding the water with a precision that baffled the onlookers. "What madness is this?" muttered one farmer to another. "She is trying to command the river. The ancestors will be angry." Bissy laughed again, pointing. "Look at the fool, wasting her strength. The river gives when it chooses, not when a woman digs ditches." But Kemi paid them no mind. She worked from sunrise to sunset, her movements a steady, rhythmic dance. After she had guided the water to her land, she did not simply scatter seeds as was the custom. She used a pointed metal tool to poke deep, individual holes in the softened earth, dropping one or two seeds into each before covering them with care. Then, she spread a layer of dried grass and leaves over the soil. The villagers whispered and pointed, their skepticism growing with each passing day. "She buries her seeds too deep. They will never see the sun. And she covers the earth with rubbish. She is insulting the land." Weeks turned into months. The dry season tightened its grip on the land. The sun baked the earth until it cracked. The villagers' own crops, planted in the traditional way, began to wither. The leaves of their maize yellowed and curled, and the yam vines drooped sadly. Worry turned to fear, and hunger began to gnaw at the edges of village life. Yet, on the edge of the village, a miracle was unfolding. Kemi's patch of land was an oasis of vibrant green. Her maize stalks stood tall and strong, their leaves lush and dark. But healthy yams pushed up from beneath the moist, protected soil. Her small, clever channels kept the earth damp, and the layer of grass prevented the sun from stealing the precious moisture. The very people who had mocked her now stood at the edge of her farm in stunned silence. Bissy, her sharp tongue silenced, stared with wide, unbelieving eyes. The children would creep close, marveling at the green paradise that had sprung from the forgotten dust. One evening, unable to bear the sight of his people's suffering any longer, Chief Aide walked to Kemi's plot. He stood for a long time, watching her tend to her flourishing crops. There was no pride in his eyes now, only humility and desperation. "Kemi," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of his village's hunger. "Our crops are dying. Our children are hungry. We were wrong to doubt you. Will you teach us?" Kemi looked up from her work, her calm eyes meeting his. She smiled, not with triumph, but with compassion. "The land does not change its heart, Chief Aide," she said softly. "But sometimes, we must change our hands. The old ways were good for the old times. The world is different now. The river is different. We must learn to listen to the earth as it is today, not as it was yesterday." And so, she taught them. She showed them how to dig the irrigation canals, how to use the new tools to plant with intention, and how to protect the soil from the harsh sun. The men, who once scoffed, now worked alongside her, their muscles learning the new rhythms. The women, who once whispered, now learned to manage the water gates, sharing the river's gift equally. Bissy became Kemi's most eager student, her sharp mind quickly grasping the new techniques. When the next planting season arrived, the entire village of Omial was a network of life-giving channels. They planted Kemi's way. And when the harvest came, it was the most bountiful the village had seen in a generation. The granaries overflowed with maize, and the yams were so large it took 2 men to carry a single one. Laughter and song returned to Omial, louder and more joyful than ever before. Kemi never became chief, nor did she seek any power. She remained Kemi, the quiet stranger who had taught them to listen. But she was no longer a stranger. She was a part of Omial, her wisdom woven into the fabric of their new traditions. And so, the story goes, the people of Omial never feared change again. They understood that tradition is not a rigid cage, but a living root that must grow and adapt to find new water. They taught their children, and their children's children, that sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from the quietest voice, and the greatest harvest comes from a seed of change. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please follow our channel for more tales from the heart of the motherland.